Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing two more builds once again in the Edge of Fate. This first one is actually an Arc build. It's not using a featured exotic like most of my other builds, but it is still very good. We're using the exotic Lucky Raspberry, which it pretty much just buffs arc bolt grenades a lot, so damaging enemies with Jolt, lightning strikes, and collecting ionic traces both grant additional arc bolt grenade energy. And then arc bolt grenades stun overload champions. So we're actually going to be using arc, not prismatic. Even though you could use prismatic with this build, I think arc works better. We're going to use delicate tomb. It doesn't matter if you have the catalyst, I don't have it, so pretty much what this does is it just does a ton of damage. It's great for ag clear if you're shooting from the hip, and if not, it's still good. So if you're going against orange bars, which usually aren't that difficult, it'll guarantee to create an ionic trace when you kill them, every time. Or opposing guardians if you're in Crucible. And then normal kills just have a chance to generate ionic traces, but it's a pretty high chance. And then collecting an ionic trace will overcharge the next shot, so it jolts on hit. So this is a very good build for jolting. Add clear, heavy damage, anything. So you could really use any super. I use Gathering Storm. You could use Storm's Edge. I wouldn't use Arc Staff just because I don't really use it that much, but you could use it if you want. Just whatever you like. It doesn't really matter for the super. We're going to be using Gambler's Dodge and then Disorienting Blow, which not many people use on Arc. Most people do Combination Blow, but I find Disorienting Blow works pretty well. And the good thing about Disorienting Blow is that with this build, you can pretty much blind and jolt everything, and blind stuns unstoppable champions, and jolt stuns overload champions. And then I'll show you, but later, the primary weapon is a pulse rifle, so because of the artifact, that will also be a barrier weapon. So you'll have all three champions with this build. And then, of course, arc bolt grenade. Aspects, we're going to be doing flow state. So the main part of this that we're using is defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. So you'll pretty much just always be amplified. And then lethal current, what we want from this is damaging any jolted target with melee attack also blinds them. Fragments, we're going to use Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, which you always will be, your arc, special or heavy ammo weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. So you'll just be blinding everything with this build and jolting everything. Spark of Shock, arc grenades jolt, pretty simple. Spark of Ions, defeating a jolted target or defeating a target with bolt charge creates an ionic trace, so you'll get even more ionic traces. And then Spark of Discharge, arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace, so you can make even more with Delicate Tomb if you're just killing red bars. And then collecting an ionic trace grants you a stack of bolt charge. That one's really good. So weapons, I find Last Thursday to be pretty good. I have a really good roll, especially for this build. Two new perks, Transcendent Moment and Binary Orbit. So the main one is Binary Orbit, but Transcendent Moment also works. So this will just make it so kills buff range and aim assist. And then if you do decide to change this build a little and make it prismatic, it'll do stability and handling too if you're transcendent. So Binary Orbit is the really good one. So light final blows will boost stasis, strand, and kinetic weapons damage, and since it's enhanced, it goes for longer. But this is perfect since it's an arc build, so you'll always be getting light final blows. So you can just use this weapon all the time and do a ton of damage. and it's just perfect for this build. And then Darkness Final Blows, if you decide to make this prismatic, will boost Arc, Solar, and Void weapons, which this is Strand. And then I used Backup Mag just for 48 magazine, which is very good. Like I said, we're using Delicate Tomb. If you don't like Delicate Tomb, you can use Cold Heart, the Arc Fusion Rifle. Trace Rifle. But I find Delicate Tomb is a lot better. And then you can really use any Arc machine gun. I use Terminus Horizon because it's got a good roll. It's the Right of the 9 version. You can still get it the normal version, but this has better perks. So you can really do either of these. But I really like the perk Rolling Storm for this. Final Blows grant Bolt Charge. So with this build, you always have Bolt Charge. You won't have to worry. And then while Amplified Final Blows grant additional Bolt Charge, that's even better because you'll always be amplified. And then Reconstruction just for a ton of ammo. So for the artifact, this is going to be the same artifact for both builds. My next build is going to be a prismatic build. But this one is Arc, which there's not many Arc things in the artifact, so we kind of had to improvise. So like all of my artifacts, I have Anti-Barrier Scout and Pulse, Unstoppable Sidearm and Hand Cannon, and Overload Rapid Fire. Those I never take off, they're the best ones. Sniper and Shotgun you can use, but I feel like this is just more worth it. Second column we have Flame, Fiber, and Freeze. One with Frost, and then Rapid Precision Rifling. These don't really matter. These first two help with the first build, the one I'm going to show later. Not this build. And then Rapid Precision Rifling, you don't have to use this one. You can put it on something else. And then third column we have Fever and Chill, and then Reciprocal Draw. Which Reciprocal Draw doesn't really do much for either of these builds, but gotta do something. So you can change it to something like Frost Renewal or Elemental Benevolence. Fourth column I have Elemental Daze and Elemental Coalescence. Elemental Coalescence is fantastic for this build and the next one, but this build even better because it'll just make even more ionic traces. Sometimes it can be like overkill, like having all these ionic traces with the fragments, Delicate Tomb, and Elemental Coalescence, but pretty much everything you kill will give you an ionic trace with this build. And because of the exotic we're using, that'll make it so you never run out of arc bolt grenades. And then final column we have Shield Crush, which is actually very good for this build and the next. And then Elemental Overdrive, which is also good, it increases damage. So armor, helmet, for the armor archetypes you should probably do Grenadier, but I use either Brawler or Bulwark for most of my armor unless it's an exotic, because I just like having my health stat high so that if I'm low I can run around, find an orb, and instantly heal. But if you don't find yourself having to do that, go for Grenadier, get your grenade stat higher. For every armor piece we're going to use Grenade Mod, and then Arc Siphon, Strand Siphon, and another Arc Siphon because of Harmonic Siphon. Gauntlets, we have Firepower, and then Double Impact Induction. Chest armor, we have double arc ammo generation and strand ammo generation. Boots, we have strand weapon surge, arc weapon surge, and then innervation. Which innervation you don't need, you might want to swap it for insulation or something else, but if you want to, then just switch that out. And then cloak, we use time dilation, Bomber, and Reaper. So I'm gonna showcase this in the new shooting range like I do with my other builds. So if you've never used Delicate Tomb before, pretty much Hipfire shoots a wide spread, and then when you ADS, it's like a normal fusion rifle. And Hipfire does do more damage. It's not mentioned on the weapon, but it does. So, as you can see, I spawned some orange bars and a champion, so I can throw my grenade. I had bolt charge ready, so that's why I did that. And then he put up his barrier, so I can switch to my pulse rifle and stun him. Use my melee, dodge, use my melee again. That gets him down really low. And then, really, I can just run around punching these guys. And it works really well, even if it's an unpowered melee. So the thing I like about Disorienting Blow is the damage it does, because it does like half of these guys' health, and unpowered melee only does like a third of a bar, maybe like a fourth of a bar. So here you can see it again. There's the damage for Delicate Tomb. Here's the hipfire. So this would be a better demonstration if you could spawn some more ads, but I can spawn some orange bars instead of mini bosses, so there's more. So that was about 15,000 damage. So let me just rally real quick. And then with these orange bars, every time you kill one, it gives an ionic trace. And ionic traces give a stack of bolt charge every time you pick one up. So now if I throw down my grenade, there goes the bolt charge. Then I can just keep doing this gameplay loop. And let me showcase the pulse rifle if you haven't used it before, or if you just want to see it. So let me spawn a champion. So with the Edge of Fate weapons, which this is an Edge of Fate weapon from Kepler, the origin trait pretty much makes it so if you aim at an enemy and wait about a second, you can see on the scope, it like lights up. That'll actually shoot a rocket, and it just one-shot these guys. So it does have a cooldown, it's not very long though, and it does do a lot of damage. So there's Delicate Tomb from far away, which is very good damage, especially because it's like 30 meters away. So next I'll show Terminus Horizon with Rolling Storm, in case you're wondering. So you can see with this, there's just a ton of bolt charge, and then I just activate an ability to release it. But the good thing about this build, or really any build, is if you're in a fire team with a Arc Titan that's using bolt charge and Storm's Keep, you can go behind their barricade and just shoot something, and you can use bolt charge with your weapons instead of your abilities. In the future, I might start making Titan and Warlock builds and that will be one of the ones I show because that is probably the best build in the game right now. Storms keep Titan. So that was the first build. The next build is going to be using the brand new hand cannon, the spread shot hand cannon, which is pretty much a shotgun. It can roll with shotgun perks like 1-2 punch, which that can work for this build, but I decided to use a different roll. So if you go to the shooting range, you can actually go to 801. She's here now for this week, for Arms Week. And then she will have some stuff for you. She'll give you one of these hand cannons. You can also get some old hand cannons if you play the game a little and get some combat telemetry. So you can get hand cannons like Warden's Law, which is one of the best hand cannons. It's also a heavy burst, which is my favorite weapon archetype in the game. I love heavy burst hand cannons. There's lots of good ones here. Kept Confidence, Austringer, Luna's Howl, Exalted Truth, the Palindrome, and this new one. It's really interesting because it's a close range hand cannon that shoots like a shotgun, and it has shotgun perks, but it still like reloads and everything like a hand cannon. So I'll just demonstrate the hand cannon and then show the build. So here's the hand cannon. See, it did 464 damage, and I have incandescent on it, which is a very good roll because this is good for ag clear. So it's like a shotgun. It does less damage the farther you get. See, I only do 12 damage per pellet to him, when if I'm close to this one, it does 36. So let's say you're 30 meters away. It does about the same. But eventually, you can't even hit them because they're too far away. So you can see they're at the 60. I'm at the 30. So if it's 30 meters away, you cannot hit them. 20, you can, it just won't do as much damage. And then 10 isn't bad. But it is really good as a shotgun, and it uses primary ammo. And this is what I based the whole build off of. When I got this weapon, I loved it so much, I just wanted to make a build from it, because I couldn't find one of my builds that I could use it with. So I decided to make this one. So the build is using Lucky Pants. There's a lot of Lucky Pants builds for hunters. You don't need to use Lucky Pants. You can use some exotic class item, but I just use this because it's a shotgun hand cannon, so it'll do more damage. We're using Prismatic with Silence and Squall. This is mainly a Stasis and Solar build. So we've got Gambler's Dodge, Knife Trick, and instead of a Stasis Grenade or Melee, we're using Grapple, so you can get to enemies quickly, because you want to use the shotgun hand cannon, and you need to be close for that. So use your Grapple, use your Melee, get them to like half health, and then use your hand cannon. Aspects, we have Winter Shroud and Gunpowder Gamble. And then fragments, we have Facet of Balance, which I use in pretty much every Prismatic build. Facet of Awakening. Facet of Protection, since you'll be near enemies a lot. Facet of Ruin. And then Facet of Honor. So weapons, for the exotic, we're using Conditional Finality. If you don't have this, it's fine, since it is a raid exotic from Root of Nightmares. It is I'm pretty sure it has pretty high chances of dropping. There's no catalyst, but it is very good for this build since it shoots in stasis and solar, and they actually buffed it, so now it can stun, overload, and unstoppable champions. If you don't have this, there's other things you can use. You can use another hand cannon if you want, but double primary doesn't always work very well. So I think you could use Agar Scepter as a replacement for this, which you can just get from the exotic kiosk in the tower. So if you don't have conditional finality, use Agar Scepter, or just try and find some special weapon in the kinetic slot, or even a heavy slot, that's preferably stasis or solar. Or strand, if you want to use that. You can, if you did Desert Perpetual, you can use the new Whirling Ovation. That would work very well for this build. So like I said, we're using the new hand cannon, spread shot. Threat detector doesn't really matter that much. I only have this role because of incandescent, which is the best solar perk in the game. And then the origin trait is really good. When targets are nearby, final blows grant weapon damage, reload speed, and handling until the wielder's death. So that does work with threat detector since it's when enemies are in close proximity. And then for the power weapon, I have Ulterior Observation, the new stasis machine gun. Like the last video, I don't have really good traits, it's just a stasis machine gun, so I'm using it. For armor, we're going to be using weapons mods the whole time. We have Thermodynamic Siphon, Solar Siphon, and then Harmonic Siphon for stasis. Gauntlets, we have Harmonic Loader times 2, and then Solar Loader. Chest piece, we have Strand Ammo Generation, which that should be stasis, but might have gotten mixed up. So double strand or stasis ammo generation, and then solar ammo generation. So this is on grenade stat, because my grenade stat was a little low, but you can put it onto weapon stat. So as you can see, with all these weapon stats, mine is at 98, not even over 100, because I don't have the right archetypes of armor for weapons. But 98 is still pretty good. I'd say getting it over 100 doesn't really matter much. I'd say 0 to 100 is where you want to stay, because over 100, it's not that important for weapons, it's just damage against bosses and guardians. But this isn't really a boss build. Boots, we have enhanced athletics. You don't have to use that, I do though. And then solar and stasis weapon surge. You can see I still have the old Lucky Pants from before Edge of Fate, so there's no armor archetype. As you can see, the stats are all just randomized. But if I were to get an archetype for this, I would do Gunner, because the primary stat is weapons. And then Cloak, we have Proximity Ward, Time Dilation, and Powerful Attraction. Then Artifact, if you want to check, same thing as last build. And since Lucky Pants are a featured exotic, we get a lot more damage resist, 9% damage resist if you're using the same tier armor I am, and then more weapon damage and energy in power slot. So here in the shooting range, I can demonstrate. As you can see, this doesn't have much range, I can't even reach that, but so what you're going to want to do with this build is you can just go up to things do that, I guess I still had bolt charge from the last build because that just struck him with lightning. So you can just go up and melee stuff. I find grappling and then doing the grapple melee, you can just start shooting him, and then conditional finality is perfect for this. So you can see it's just acting like a shotgun here. If you want to, you can switch out conditional finality for something that's longer range, because there's only one issue with this build, and that if you're doing an activity that requires you to use something with range, you'd have to use your power weapon, because you're using a shotgun hand cannon and a shotgun. So that's the only problem. But other than that, it's pretty good. So you can see, it is actually, I think the artifact mod is broken. So as you can see, in the artifact we have unstoppable sidearm and hand cannon. I think it's just with the spread shot hand cannons, but if you try and stun an unstoppable champion with it, it just doesn't work, no matter how many times you shoot. So hopefully this gets fixed soon, but for now you're just gonna have to use your melee twice and ignite them, because that's really the only way to stun unstoppables without using the hand cannon. So I can actually take this off and then do something like this. Maybe put on some Vex. So as you can see, the artifact is broken. It thinks that the spread shot hand cannon is a shotgun. I don't know if they want it to be like that, but that's how it is. So if you, it says down below your super bar, below the weapon, it says that it's an overload, is unstoppable. But then it doesn't work on unstoppables. So you can do this, it'll say unstoppable shot, but really, it's an overload weapon, because it actually acts as a shotgun. So that is a slight problem with this build, that you can only use this as a champion weapon if you have overload shotgun on, which you already have an overload shotgun with conditional finality. So I think hopefully this either gets patched or they say something about it so that we know it's either a glitch or it's supposed to be in the game. But this is still a very solid weapon. Also, I don't know what's happening with that, but every time I shoot this overload, it ignites it. I don't know if it's incandescent also being broken, or one of my fragments, but as you can see, I just shoot him, and it ignites. So I'd say you should take advantage of this while you can, because you can ignite random things. I don't know if it's just champions or what, but let's see. It might just be champions. Is it maybe after you stun it? I think I know what it is. Yeah, here it is. It's not a glitch, it's an artifact perk. I just forgot I had it on there. So that is still really good though. Take advantage of this artifact perk. Stunning a champion creates an elementally aligned explosion. So you can pretty much just ignite random stuff as long as it's a champion. So you do have to have overload shotgun, sadly, to use this as a champion weapon. I was playing with this earlier, and I was in Onslaught. There were overload and unstoppable champions. So I held down on I held ADS. I saw at the bottom left above my super bar, as you can see, unstoppable shot. I went to go shoot the unstoppable champion like 5 times, and it just wouldn't stun. I thought it was just the hand cannon being weird, but I guess acts as a shotgun. It does make sense, because of course it's a spread shot, but it's still a hand cannon. So the fact that it acts as a shotgun is probably a glitch. You can see it's hand cannon and shotgun, not hand cannon and shotgun and hand cannon that shoots pellets. So I would just use this while you can, stun overloads, because this is much easier to stun overloads than other weapons, because before you would have to use auto rifles or SMGs, which if you've ever tried to stun an overload with a weapon like that, it takes a while, because it has to be uninterrupted fire, so you just have to keep shooting at them. Last season it was machine guns, so you just had to keep your machine gun on them like forever. You'd use like half your mag to stun the champion, and then you'd have to reload, and then by the time you did all that, it would have healed again. So I think this is a really good artifact perk, overload shotgun, because you can just do this. Like I said, you can also use something like conditional finality, so overload, and then you can see it change to unstoppable once it's in the solar mode. And I also find that for some reason this hand cannon has better range if you're shooting at a gunpowder gamble. Like, I'm not able to shoot that far at an enemy, but with gunpowder gamble, I guess you can shoot however far you want. Which, it makes sense, but so there's the 2 builds. Let me know if you want anything changed or updated. I did change my first void build of Edge of Fate in the last video. I will link that at the end. Because after the nerf of 3rd iteration, without the catalyst, it's not very good anymore. So I updated the build to amend to that. So let me know what build you want next time, and I'll try to keep it simple, no exotic class items. I'll do some with the exotic class items, but I know people don't like trying to farm for a single role, I might do one with one perk that you like need, and the other one is just like it'll help, but you don't need it because you can actually focus certain perks or attune at Ghost in the Pale Heart. So I will release a video soon with two more builds, and for now, have a good one.